I stopped allowing my elderly neighbor to store her boxes in my garage after finding rodents. The next week, I returned from work to find my garage door smashed open and my car covered in paint. She stood there saying, "You locked away my memories. So I ruined yours." As I dialed the police, she pulled out an old photo from my past and said, "You thought this was buried forever, didn't you?" And when I saw it, my knees buckled because I live in Springfield, Missouri. Always have. It's a place where people still wave when they pass you on the street. Where neighbors know your name and folks keep their drama behind closed doors. After my divorce 5 years ago, I just wanted quiet. I bought a small ranch-style house on the edge of town. 1-car garage, fenced-in yard, nothing fancy. Just enough space for me and my tools. I work long hours at a local auto body shop, and when I'm home, I keep to myself. I don't party, don't date much, don't go out unless I have to. My peace is my garage. I rebuilt an old 1970 Chevy Nova in there. That car got me through the darkest parts of my divorce. Every bolt I tightened felt like pulling myself back together. My next-door neighbor, Margaret, was this elderly woman, maybe pushing 80. White hair, long skirts, always out trimming her roses or humming to herself. She'd lived on that street since the 70s. We'd exchange small talk. She was polite, quiet, and seemed like someone you could trust. One evening last year, she came over holding a small box and said her attic was too hot to store things in. She asked if she could keep a few things in my garage, just for a little while. She said they were sentimental. I asked what kind of things. She said photos, old baby clothes, some keepsakes from her late husband and son. I hesitated, but she looked genuinely sad. It felt cruel to say no. I cleared out a small corner. 5 boxes. That's all she said it would be. Weeks passed. Then months. The boxes never left. And new ones started appearing. I'd come home from work and see more of them stacked up. No warning, no thank you, just more of her stuff. It got to the point where they took up almost half my garage. But I didn't want to be the guy who kicks out an old lady's memories. So I kept my mouth shut. Then the smell started. It was faint at first, like something damp. Then one day, I walked in and it hit me like a wall. Rotting. Sour. I pulled a few boxes away from the wall and found mouse droppings. One of the boxes had holes chewed in the bottom. Inside was some kind of cloth, old baby clothes maybe, but they were moldy and stank. I looked behind my workbench and found a dead rat. I was done. I called Margaret that night and told her I was sorry, but I couldn't keep her things anymore. I explained about the rodents and the damage to my garage. I said she'd need to take the boxes back. She went quiet. Then she said, "I trusted you." I repeated myself. "I can't risk more damage." She didn't respond. Just hung up. After that, she stopped speaking to me. She wouldn't even look in my direction. The roses in her yard started dying off. The front porch light stayed off. It felt like something had shifted, but I didn't know how deep it went yet. 1 week later, I came home from work around 7 p.m. It was late spring, still light out. I hit the button for the garage door and nothing happened. I tried again. Nothing. I pulled up closer, and my stomach dropped. The garage door was mangled. The panels had been smashed inward like someone had rammed it. My heart started racing. I parked out front and ran to the side entrance. When I opened the door, I just froze. My Chevy Nova was drenched in bright blue paint. Splattered all over the hood, roof, windows, seats, even the tires. The paint was still dripping. It looked like someone had dumped entire buckets on it. And on the hood, in big sloppy letters, "Thief." I felt like I couldn't breathe. Then I saw her. Margaret was standing by the corner of the garage, just outside the paint splatter. She looked calm. Her arms were crossed, her mouth tight. Her eyes were glassy. You locked away my memories, she said slowly. So I ruined yours. I didn't say a word. I pulled out my phone and started dialing the police. She didn't flinch. She reached into her cardigan pocket and pulled out a photo. It was old, yellowed at the edges. She held it out like it was a gun. You thought this was buried forever, didn't you? I didn't want to look. But I did. And when I saw it, it was like the world tilted. It was me. 17 years old, sitting on the hood of a car, arms slung around two other guys. One of them was her son. David. Behind us, smoke curled in the trees. You could just barely make out the burned edges of a field. That night came back to me all at once. The fire. The panic. The lies. The silence that followed. I never forgot, she said. And I never forgave. I just stared at the photo, numb. Because the truth is, we were never just drunk teenagers in that photo. We were covering something up. And now, I knew she'd never really been my neighbor. She'd been waiting. I stood there holding that photo, my hand shaking. Margaret didn't move. She just kept watching me like she was studying every twitch on my face. She wanted me to react. To crack. And I did. Because I hadn't seen that photo in over 20 years. I didn't even know one existed. That night was supposed to be gone, locked away forever. But there it was. Me, Danny, and David. Just a bunch of small-town idiots playing with fire, literally. We were 17, drunk, and thought it'd be funny to light an abandoned barn on the edge of Route 125. We didn't know someone was sleeping inside. At least, that's what we told ourselves. There were rumors after the fire. The sheriff asked questions. David got scared and disappeared a few weeks later. They said he'd gone to live with relatives in Texas. I never saw him again. I told myself we didn't kill anyone. The paper said unconfirmed signs of habitation, no body found. We got lucky, right? I told myself that lie every year since. But now, Margaret was standing here, staring at me like she'd been living for this moment. I don't know what you think this proves, I said, trying to sound calm, even though my throat was dry. But you destroyed my property. You're going to pay for that. She let out a bitter laugh. You still don't get it. This isn't about paint. It's not about boxes. This is about David. My son. My only son. I stepped closer. You said he moved. That he had a job down south. She looked me dead in the eyes. He never left. He's buried in the woods you burned down. My chest caved in. My mouth went dry. What? You didn't see him because you ran. You didn't look. But he was there. Sleeping off a bender in that old barn. The fire didn't kill him. The smoke did. She turned, walked out of the garage, and left me there, knees weak, fists clenched. The cops came 10 minutes later. I gave them the story, the vandalism, the paint, the smashed door. I left the photo part out. I didn't know what to do with it yet. Margaret denied everything. Said she didn't touch anything. Claimed I was trying to get her arrested over some stupid old boxes. She even showed them a fake doctor's note, said she had memory issues. That she confused things sometimes. They didn't arrest her. Just filed a report. That night, I sat in my car, staring at the photo under the dim light of my porch. I couldn't sleep. My hands were shaking. I couldn't stop thinking about David. About what she said. About the look in her eyes. The next morning, someone slashed my tires. Not just one. All four. Then the death threats started. Typed notes in my mailbox. No return address. Stuff like, murderer. Justice is coming. He's still watching you. The police said they'd look into it, but they didn't sound convinced. Margaret played the innocent old lady card. Said I was harassing her. The neighborhood started turning too. People stopped waving. Stopped talking. I noticed her whispering to folks on the street. I could feel it, eyes watching me from behind curtains. Then Danny called. I hadn't talked to him in years. He sounded shaken. Did she come to you too? He asked. What do you mean? She showed up at my work, he said. She knew where I was. Knew about the fire. Had pictures. What did you do? I paid her to leave me alone. How much? 10 grand. My stomach turned. She's playing some kind of long game, he said. She wants to ruin us. That's when I realized something deeper. This wasn't just about revenge. She wasn't trying to scare me. She was dragging me into something. Pushing me toward something. So I did something stupid. I went back to the woods. The barn was long gone. Grown over. But the clearing was still there. I walked the edges, tried to remember where everything was. It felt like walking through a graveyard with no headstones. I almost turned back, until I saw the shovel. Old. Rusted. Leaning against a tree stump. Next to it was a small, fresh patch of dirt. And sticking out of the ground, a boot. A damn boot. I dropped to my knees and pulled at the dirt with my hands, heart pounding so loud I could barely think. That's when I heard the click behind me. I turned around. Margaret was standing there. Holding a camera. Snap. Then she smiled. You wanted to forget. I wanted you to remember. Now we both have what we want. I didn't understand. Until the next morning, when the police came to my door with a search warrant. They said they received an anonymous photo of me, digging up a body. They cuffed me right there on my porch. I tried explaining, told them I didn't bury anything, that I found the boot like that someone set me up. But they weren't listening. One of the deputies, a guy I went to high school with, just stared at me like I was already guilty. You sure this is the hill you want to die on, he said as they put me in the cruiser. They didn't charge me at first. Just held me for questioning. But the rumors were already flying. By the time I got out, less than 24 hours later, the town had flipped. My garage had killer spray painted across it. The shop I worked at told me not to come back until things cooled off. And somehow, Margaret was still playing the victim. She showed up at the town council meeting 2 nights later with a tissue in hand, talking about how unsafe she felt. How memories of her son's death were being mocked by the man living next door. They gave her a round of applause. I couldn't believe it. But then came the twist that really knocked the wind out of me. A reporter from a local true crime podcast messaged me. Said she'd gotten an anonymous tip. Someone mailed them a USB drive with audio files on it, recordings of me and Danny back in high school, drunk and bragging about that night. We never recorded ourselves. I was sure of that. But when she played the clip for me, it was my voice. Twisted, edited, but unmistakably me. Yeah, we torched that place. No one saw us. David's dumbass probably died in his sleep. I never said those words. Not exactly. But the words were close enough to what we could have said that night, if someone had been listening. That's when it hit me. Margaret wasn't just guessing. She'd been watching us for years. Not just recently, for decades. Maybe David never left town. Maybe he died in that fire. But maybe he didn't. Maybe he lived for a while, long enough to leave behind things. A journal. A tape. Or maybe Margaret found something in his room. A confession. Or just enough pieces to piece the story together. And if she had all this, why now? Why wait? Then I got a call from Danny again. He was panicking. She's not stopping, he said. I got a letter this morning. Had pictures of my kids in it. Playing in the front yard. I felt cold all over. She's threatening your family? He was silent for a second. She said if I didn't go on record, she'd make sure CPS saw the photos with the bottles in my garage. What are you talking about? She's framing me. She's making it look like I'm drinking around the kids. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about the truth. This was about punishment. Slow, cruel, personal punishment. I started digging deeper. I reached out to an old friend, Mike, who works IT. I asked him to check if Margaret had any public records, land, utilities, tech subscriptions. Anything. What he found made my skin crawl. She had a P.O. box across town, under a fake name. Linked to multiple burner phones and several anonymous Reddit accounts that had posted on true crime subs for years. All about 3 boys who killed my son. Stories just vague enough to avoid lawsuits, but specific enough to keep people talking. She'd been planning this for a long time. And she wasn't done. That night, I got a package on my porch. No return address. Inside was a burned photo album. The pages warped. But inside, pictures of me as a teen. School photos. Candid shots from parties. Pictures I'd never seen before. On the last page, in thick black marker, I for and I. Memory for a memory. Then I noticed something else. Tucked in the back was a photo of my dad. But not a recent one. It was from the day he left us. The last day I ever saw him. And I realized something that made me sick to my stomach. That barn? It wasn't just a place we torched for fun. It used to belong to my father's family. He left it abandoned after the divorce. I hadn't put it together until now. But if David had been squatting there, and Margaret knew who I was before I even moved in. She wasn't just punishing me for David. She was punishing me for everything. For my bloodline. For whatever twisted part she believed my family played in her son's death. And the worst part? I was starting to wonder if she was right. Because maybe we didn't just make a mistake that night. Maybe we created her. I didn't sleep after that. I sat in my kitchen all night staring at that photo of my dad. It made everything feel heavier. My dad abandoned us when I was 12. He'd always been angry, always drunk, always talking about how the town owed him something. He disappeared one day and never came back. Now I wondered if Margaret had been tracking him, too. Maybe she'd planned to ruin him, but I showed up first. Maybe she decided to finish the job on the next generation. The next morning, I made a decision. If she wanted the truth out there, fine. I'd give it to her. But not her version, mine. I called the same podcast reporter and said I'd go on record. Full name, full story. No more hiding. I told her everything. The fire. David. The cover-up. The guilt. The things we knew and the things we didn't. I didn't protect myself. I told the parts that made me look weak. Cowardly. Because I was. It went viral. Turns out people care when a man confesses to a crime he committed 20 years ago and shows real guilt. There were hundreds of comments, some calling me a murderer, others thanking me for telling the truth. Then Danny came forward too. His story matched mine. Word for word. The story got picked up by local news, then national. Margaret's little web of anonymous accounts and rumors didn't hold up when people started fact-checking. Journalists dug into her past, and that's when the real twist hit. Margaret had lied. David never died in that fire. Records showed he was arrested 2 years later in Oklahoma for arson. He'd burned down another building. Same pattern. He served time. Got out. Went missing 5 years later. And guess who he was last seen with? Margaret. Police reopened the case. They searched her property. In the shed behind her house, they found a wallet with David's ID. And bones. Dental records confirmed it. David had died nearly 15 years ago. Not in that fire, but beaten and buried in a shallow grave 10 feet from her flower garden. That sweet old lady? She killed her own son. No one knows why exactly. Maybe he blamed her for his life falling apart. Maybe he threatened to go public with everything. But one thing's for sure, she knew he was dead all this time. And she still blamed us. The story exploded. Margaret was arrested for obstruction, murder, stalking, and more. Turns out she wasn't senile. She was smart. She'd been collecting photos, fake IDs, even setting up her own little investigation room in her basement, walls covered in articles, maps, and photos of me and Danny. She'd even broken into my garage more than once to plant things. But she slipped up with the shovel. And with the camera. And now the law had her. The trial took months. She refused to speak. Sat there with that same cold look. But the jury didn't take long. Guilty. She was sentenced to life without parole. Even if she doesn't have much time left, she'll die behind bars. I wish I could say that was the end of it. But the truth is, I'll never be the same. Neither will Danny. He moved his family out of state. I sold the house and left Springfield for good. I couldn't walk by that garage again. Couldn't look at the driveway without seeing her standing there with that photo. My car was never the same either. The paint stripped the finish, melted parts of the interior. I sold it for parts. I still have that photo though, the one from the night of the fire. I keep it in a locked drawer. Not to punish myself. Just to remember. Because the only thing scarier than the past coming back is realizing you never really escaped it. And sometimes, the revenge someone gives you is the one you already gave yourself.